session, Cartography, How to Make Map, will be presented by Reverend Andrew Richard, who serves as the headmaster at Mount Hope Lutheran School in Casper, Wyoming. Please welcome Reverend Richard.
Thank you. The impetus behind this presentation was a class that I taught this past year at Mount Hope in art on cartography. And what got me thinking about it in the first place was the study of classical history and simply the realization just how many historical events were influenced by the very geography of the places in which they happened. There's an obvious connection between these two things. I'm going to deprive you of the 100-acre wood map for a moment here and pull up a wonderful program for working with maps electronically on the computer, namely Google Earth. That's all you need. You don't actually have to learn anything or do anything else. If this will work. It worked before the session started. Perfect. All right. So this is Google Earth, and I have all the places as an XML file that are on that map that you have in front of you. I'm going to be sending around a sign up in just a few minutes. We have last minute attendees trickling in. You can put your name and email on here, and I will send you handouts electronically and a slew of other stuff as well pertaining to cartography. I will include in there the XML file of all these places that you can import then into Google Earth and be able to do this sort of thing in class, which is just fun. But to draw your attention for a moment to this area over here, who knows what this is called?
Dardanelles.
This strip of water here, it starts with an H.
Oh, no.
The Hellespont. Yes, yes. Now you've got what the Persian kingdom, way over here. If the Persians wanted to get over to, say, Greece, they could sail, but that's a bit prohibitive if you're looking to move mass numbers of people. You could march, but you're going around the Black Sea. You have to cross a mountain range and come across this way and down and deal with the Thracians on the way. There's nobody wants to go. The Hellespont stands in the way, and this whole water course here, there is not a straight shot from Persia to Greece by land without going up and around this way. So, of course, this is pertaining to the Persian War with the Greeks. Xerxes wants to make war on the Greeks, but realizes he needs to transport a very large land army in order to do so, and brings a navy along as well, which sails along the coast by where his soldiers are marching. So he finds a narrow spot of the Hellespont, and he parks a bunch of boats side by side across the thing, and makes a bridge. And then there's a storm and the thing is destroyed. So he reacts, I think how all of us, frankly, would react. And he orders that the Hellespont be flogged for insubordination. So one of his soldiers is standing there with a whip, beating the Hellespont, probably wondering, what have I done with my life? He builds a second bridge, parks all the boats side by side, and marches his entire army across this bridge spanning the Hellespont. Now there's a reason that the Persians and Greeks didn't have a ton of interaction prior to this point, other than Greek colonies that were settled on the other side over here. But why mainland Greece had nothing to do with Persia, other than trade and that sort of thing. And it's a geographical answer. And it's the Hellespont and the Bosphorus and the Black Sea and this huge obstacle that's in the way. How many had to pass through Illinois in order to get here? Emphasis on the Illinois. Everything's toll roads, right? And you know why? Geography. Right. In order to get to so many places in the United States, you have to pass through Illinois. And they're going to use geography to make a buck. Right? That's just how life works. But reflecting on that interaction of what actually happens on Earth and Earth itself, and how it's structured, geographical features, of course, makes geography and history pair very well together. And no doubt, many of you who teach history or geography teach them in tandem, or if they're separate subjects, or at least relating them to each other. But what cartography allows you to do is add art into this trifecta, and then you have history, geography, art, all paired together. Now for the upper level students, that's junior high and high school at Mount Hope, they don't have a separate geography class. It's all just contained in history. And cartography did not replace the history class, but supplemented it. We took events that they were studying from Roman history and then made maps corresponding to them, studying geographical features along the way, and then looking at how things like the Alps played into the history of Rome's interactions with Carthagers. So I'm going to talk through just a little bit of what our actual course of study was, and I can provide you sort of sample lesson plans of what we did anyway. I'm going to start this list around. Name, email, if you want to receive the stuff, write neatly. I'm going to switch back over to the document camera, if it is play nice. I brought my own with me, just because I'm used to it. Oh, look at that. Wonderful. This is a map of the 100-acre wood, and this is kind of how we started the class, was I gave out this map to the students and said, tell me about this. What's it for? What's the purpose of a map? I also gave out the one from The Hobbit. We looked at that one too. So what are some of the main features of a map? But starting with the sort of final cause question, what's the purpose of a map? That spurred on some good discussion just by itself. What's the point of a map? What makes a good map? And we landed very quickly at it needs to correspond to reality. Otherwise it's useless. Now, of course, Google Earth corresponds to the physical world, but still the reality question is behind this, because it is the reality of the world of Winnie the Pooh. It accurately represents the geographical layout of things in the story, just like the map from The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings corresponds to that world. It needs to be accurate and represent reality. A map that's inaccurate, that doesn't represent reality, well, it's into some of the Age of Exploration fun that happened, where sometimes you would get an inaccurate map and wonder where on earth you were, quite literally. So we would talk through what's the purpose of a map. We would also ask the question, what sorts of features usually appear on a map? And things like terrain, rivers, roads, cities. Because oftentimes maps are used for traveling. You want to know, how do I get from point A to point B? This is the whole premise behind Google Maps. Certainly it can be used for other things, but largely it's for directions. Right? You want to be able to see the relation between two places and what lies in between them. So that's where we start. It's just a discussion of what's the point of a map, what makes a good map, what features are usually included, and discussing things like scale or a legend, having key to the thing, so you can represent various features with symbols instead of having to put something clunky on there or do everything in words. Talking about different kinds of maps, so a world map versus a city map, and things that will be featured on each respectively. But then the real fun started when it was, okay, copy this map. Now this is not the original, this is actually a student work here. Yeah, decent job there. That might be a bit of an understatement. Yeah, very, very well done. But give it out, and you can use whatever medium you like. You could use something like that black fine point gel pen that's going around with the sign-off list. Since we also do calligraphy, we make our own iron ball ink every year, and I like using dip pens, and just sort of adds to the experience of a nice little drawing nib, and you dip it and you write, and you feel like somebody very official, more ancient in a good way. right? Like a founding father or something. Right? So that's the medium that this was done with. This sort of pen here, just dip and write. Now this, of course, ties into one of the key skills with art, and that's emulation, representing things as you see them on paper, whatever medium you're working with. So getting an eye for how to lay this out and place things accurately. So of course, one of the main features on this map is this river. And that's what I encourage the kids to do first.
Yeah.
If you get that placed, you can see how everything else kind of hangs onto it and lies around it. Those of you who were in the calligraphy class yesterday, same sort of thing. You want to nail your base stroke of a letter because everything else is going to relate to it and attach to it. And so with the map, you get your main features in proper relation to each other, everything else will follow. A tendency for some was to say, oh, there's Winnie the Pooh. That's cool. I'm going to draw Winnie the Pooh first. Or, I like the way this tree looks. I'm going to draw this tree. And then I'll just continue on with the forest. So starting at a random spot and radiating out, or going about it like reading a book. I'm just going to start in the top left corner and work my way across. That isn't the best way to go about it. You want to get your key features nailed and then place everything else around it. And that does teach us something about geography too. Now the place that you would use, or the feature that you would use to anchor everything is going to factor that way into history as well. So they would emulate an existing map. They had their option of the 100-acre wood or Mirkwood from The Hobbit. It was just make this as accurate as you can. You're trying to make a representation of an existing thing. I'm not asking you to necessarily be creative or do your own take on it. Can you take that and make it yourself? So that's a nice initial exercise, especially if you're getting used to how to work with a pen that hasn't been familiar up to that point. Another session, we spent making up maps. I just give a blank piece of paper and say, draw a map. And it could be an island, it could be totally inland, it could be something on the coast. And they would start drawing, and I would come around and just ask questions. And things like, what's their fresh water source? What do they do for a living? Where's their food come from? What do they eat? Who are their neighbors? What do they fight with their neighbors about? What sets the boundary of their territory? Is it a natural feature? Is it some treaty that they signed? Right? Where does your kingdom end and the next one pick up? And those sorts of questions are key to ask in the study of history as well, because that influences a great deal. There are many things that have happened in history because the people over here had a famine and ran out of food, and their usual food source was gone, and they had to do something else, so they actually moved out. You read the beginning of Caesar's De Bello Gallica, the Gallic War, and you get about the Gauls and how they were feeling a little cramped. The people had grown, and they had geographical features on every side of them, a lake, a couple of mountain ranges that did not allow for further expansion, and that's what set them on the warpath. They left their territory, or that was the pretense anyway, to go expand, take over some other peoples, and have room to grow. Again, at least the pretense, was a geographical cause rather than anything else. So asking those sorts of questions, where do they farm? Where do they raise livestock? Are they fairly settled? Do they move around? What's the climate like? And then the question, how would the geographical features you've included influence how they live? It's just getting to that core question so that they're thinking about that as we approach geography and history, that there's an inseparable connection between those two things. And as they create their own sort of world to be considered. Now, at this point, I've not taught them, here's how you draw a tree, here's how you draw a forest, here's how you draw a mountain range, or represent rivers or roads or symbols for cities. We just kind of play around, made things up. Everyone's seen maps before. It's not like Creati likes an ELO. You've got something to work with already. And so that made for a lot of really fun discussion. Then we got into going through some actual how to do geographical features and such. I'm going to pull up some of the maps that I gave to them and talk through a bit what we did with them. Again, if this whole system is willing to play nice with me. While that is considering being obedient, I'm going to draw your attention to a few books and then pass them around. I don't know how you feel about fantasy mapping, RPGs and making up worlds and that sort of thing. I'm not into the actual games myself, but these books are phenomenal for learning map drawing. So fantasy art, RPG maps, right? How to do mountain ranges, how to do rivers, how to do forests, how to do symbols, how to place labels properly so that it's not blocking anything else that needs to be inserted behind it. So I've got several of these. I'm just going to pass them around. Feel free to take a look. Again, if your name's on that sheet, I'll send the titles to these and the links for where to find them. But feel free to page through. They've proven indispensable for working with this sort of stuff. The first thing we got into after, there we go, making things up, was mountains. So I handed out this map of the Italian peninsula. And of course, what do we have up here in the north? The Alps, and then what's the spine that goes down the peninsula? The Apennines, very good. All right, so that was the task, was draw the Italian peninsula, and then here's how you draw mountains. And we went through just sort of step by step, following the instructions for mountains in that red book there. Now, of course, there are a couple of ways to go about doing things. This map is purely a top-down map. Right? Those are frankly boring. To have the coast and borders and things represented top-down is nice. It lends itself to some accuracy. But then as far as features, it's nice to see it at a bit of an angle, a 30-degree angle, a 45-degree angle. And so drawing the mountains that way ends up looking nicer. So we go through the steps. Draw the spine of the mountain range and then add the peaks to it, and going through how to hatch or shade to make it look nice. Now the great thing about this is that they're going to be occupied practicing it for a while, and they just need time to practice, right? And their eyes are going to be down there, but their ears aren't doing anything in particular, and that provides a great opportunity. Now, like I said, our cartography class was piggybacked off of a history class that they had separately. You could, however, read some primary source stuff during this time if they aren't getting it otherwise. So as they're copying out the Alps, to read some things about Livy is from the founding of the city, has some great stuff about the Second Punic War that's very, very accessible. You can just read it and follow along with it. So to read an account of Hannibal crossing the Alps while the kids are drawing the Alps, it's 218 BC, and Hannibal's been in Spain and has decided to mobilize toward Italy. He's got 37 war elephants with him, thousands of troops. One of his goals is to disenfranchise all the Gauls from the Romans along the way, get them over to his army, so that when he arrives in the Italian peninsula, he has mass quantity of troops, has allies forsaking the Romans, and can simply run roughshod over Rome. He starts crossing through, and there's some treachery from the Gauls, of course. They get to the top and they can see the Po River Valley. but it was steeper coming down than it was going up, and so it was very treacherous coming down the other side. You can read this in Livy's words, this description. They come to some impasses. They end up having to almost mine their way through in this ancient fashion of heating up the rock and then dousing it with wine. And it would create cracks and fissures, and you keep that up and you can burrow your way through a mountain range. Not underground, but they were clearing things out of their way at impasses in order to be able to continue their downward journey into the Po River Valley. And to read the account of that while kids are drawing the Alps, it's a great connection. And they're never going to forget it. Right? This isn't like I'm sure modern educational technique has something to say about this. Probably in a bunch of stilted jargon. But the simple fact is, like, this is just fun, and it teaches well, and it's not hard to do. I can even send the sources for, I've excerpted plenty of things from Livy that parallel with these things. So here's how you draw some mountains. Now listen to this. And they're never going to forget the Alps and Hannibal's crossing, and they'll take in Livy in a way that they wouldn't be able to if they're just sitting there slogging through it in class. And this will be memorable and fun. All right, so that was the first kind of hands-on, here's how you do something lesson. Then we did rivers. So this is the top of the Italian peninsula. The Po River Valley. How many of you have heard of the Battle of the Trebia? Battle of the Trebia? Yeah. Oh, good. You remember. they were all in my class. This is the first battle that happened after Hannibal got down out of the Alps. Comes into this fertile Po River Valley, and there are Gauls settled here. He's trying to win them over. And the Romans are absolutely freaking out. How did the Carthaginian army get into Italy? Who let this happen? And Publius Cornelius Scipio, one of the consuls for the year, is sent up with the army, and he loses a cavalry battle and is sent back over the Trebia, licking his wounds. The Trebia is this little outflow here of the Po, or I should say it flows into the Po. And the Battle of Trebia took place just along here, to the left of Piacenza. After word gets back to Rome that Publius Cornelius Scipio lost this battle, the other consul, Sempronius, is sent up with the army. So the full Roman force is there. And Hannibal knows that Cornelius is cautious. And Hannibal does not like cautious people. Right. Fabius Maximus Cunctator, the lair, right? That was Fabius's technique, was to just sort of stall, and Hannibal's going to run out of resources as long as we don't meet him in pitched battle and only fight when we need to. The Gauls are going to become disaffected because they don't get to fight and don't get plunder. They're going to leave him. He's going to run out of resources. He's going to have to survive the winter. It's going to be horrible. So that was Fabius's technique, and Hannibal wanted to avoid that at all costs. He understood, to keep the Gauls loyal to me, and my men loyal to me, we're going to have to fight. That's a large part of what drove soldiers in the ancient world. I don't know, maybe some soldiers are still motivated by this, the concept of booty or plunder. That's what they were after. Now, Hannibal took heart because Sempronius was a little more hot-headed, and hoorah, Rome. Sempronius and Cornelius could not agree on the right approach. Sempronius just wanted to attack. Cornelius wanted to stall a bit. It was December. He's going to have to winter here. Let's see how he deals with that. And they reached an agreement to disagree, but as far as how you handle that on the field, they decided to alternate days who was in charge. There are various ways the Romans handled this over the course of history. That was one approach. Now we're going to alternate days of command. The other approach was we're going to split the army in half, and we're each going to command half. That's what happened under Fabius, and so the hot-headed guy who was consul with Fabius went and got himself into trouble. Unfortunately, Fabius had the other half of the army from the rest of the poor guy, who then thanked him profusely and realized the error of his ways, the hot-headed impetuousness of youth. So Hannibal waits until Sempronius is the commander, and stages a light cavalry attack to draw out the Roman troops. And Sempronius is flying high because a previous day he had actually gotten the better of the Carthaginian cavalry because Hannibal had they staged a retreat. And so Sempronius is flying high thinking, I won where my fellow consul lost. I can do this thing. And he convinced all the troops, we can do this thing. And so Hannibal used the geography to his advantage. We'll zoom in again here on the Trebia. So the Romans were encamped on this side, the Carthaginians on this side, and the contingent of the Carthaginian cavalry draws the Romans out of their camp. They attack first thing in the morning before the Romans have even had breakfast. This was part of the plan. Sempronius is like, yes, now's our opportunity, let's go get them. And he brings out the whole army and pursues the Carthaginian cavalry over the Trebia, through the Trebia. They're up to their chests in freezing cold water that's swollen because of winter rains on December 6th, I believe it was. And they come out and they have not had breakfast, they're freezing cold, they're shivering so hard they can barely hold on to their weapons. Meanwhile, Hannibal's men have been rubbing themselves down with warm olive oil in their camp, have had a nice leisurely breakfast waiting for the Romans to show up. And then Sempronius and the troops arrive and the Carthaginians absolutely obliterate them. Hannibal used geography to his advantage. And so I would read through the account of that. While they have this in front of them, a blank piece of paper, are drawing the whole Po River Valley with all of its various tributaries and connections. And learning how to do rivers, and learning about how rivers have influenced history. To speed up the pace just a little bit, some maps of ancient Rome. I'll give out a few of these and just encourage them, pick one and try to draw some buildings. What's the layout of Rome? Many of them did this one here, with all the nice little gables and everything. Top-down sort of street view of Rome. And talk a little bit about what happened in the city. How did things function within Rome? We didn't actually use this one, but the Roman road system could be a whole lot of fun to try to map out. This gets pretty intricate here. And I'm talking about how they had various stations posted so that they could transport troops quickly, transport messages quickly, so that a rider could go from point A to point B, top speed. You wouldn't have to worry about sleeping, because you could pass it on to the next guy. He'd have a fresh horse. It was kind of like the Pony Express on steroids. But this whole road system is what also helped spread of Christianity. So that historical connection as well. But then the big project that we were leading up to, and this goes to 11:15, I believe. We're halfway there. Our goal in the end, the final project for this class, was to make a map of the Mediterranean through which you could tell the whole story of the Christian West. So it would include biblical history, Greek history, Roman history, medieval history, some modern history as well. And that was a fantastic discussion. Rose, you remember that. That was good stuff. If you wanted to tell the story, what needs to be on the map? And there'd be plenty of things that came up. We're talking 6,000 years of history here. Is that the thing that needs to be on the map? So let me just put it to you, because I'm curious. If you were making a map of the whole history of the world as told by a map of the Mediterranean, what has to be on there?
Rome.
Rome, okay. Yeah, I think inarguably Rome. Too much stuff has happened there. What else? Athens, Jerusalem. That's right. So cities, those are big things that you want to include, and the more well-known ones will have. You've got that list in front of you. This is what we landed at, and I realized you could just read off of that as I asked you. Yeah, you're right. I don't disagree at all. That's exactly what I did say. So we had a good discussion and talked through what would go on this map. And the other big one, of course, was battles. And sort of arbitrarily, I said, let's pick 10 battles. What are the 10 most influential battles in the history of the world? And this is where we landed. A couple of very famous biblical battles. Battle of Jericho, David and Goliath, Battle of Marathon, the initial one with the Greeks against the Persians, Battle of Zama, where the Romans defeat the Carthaginians, and who knows what the course of world history would have looked like if the Persians won the Persian War, or if Hannibal had beat Scipio Africanus at the Battle of Zama. How would that have changed the course of world history? And then some geographical features. Some just because they're so large on the map of the Mediterranean that to overlook them would lead to gaping holes. And you go, what's this? It draws the eye. It needs to be labeled. But then things like Thermopylae, another famous event where geography played. How many of you know about the Battle of Thermopylae, Battle of the 300? Yeah, the better Battle of the 300 because he won. But the Spartan Battle of the 300, famous and rightly so, because they used the pass at Thermopylae to narrow down how many Persians could come at them at once. You could only go so many men broad. So there didn't matter the size of your army, it focused down, and as long as that was happening, the Spartans were winning. And some Thessalian shepherds sold them out and showed Xerxes how to pass through the mountains so they could come around from behind. And of course Leonidas, the Spartan commander, realizes, it's over, boys. Sell your lives as dearly as you can. And then Xerxes was just embarrassed afterwards by how many dead Persians there were. There were 300 Spartan bodies. That was to be expected. But innumerable Persians just dead. He's telling his men, hide the corpses in the bushes so when the rest of the army's coming through, they don't see how bad off we were. So we would get into the Mediterranean. So here's an old map of the Mediterranean. Of course, the question here is how to do coastline. I'm trying to remember, I don't think we actually drew a map of the Battle of Lake Trasimene. No, that was the next one after the Battle of Trebia, where again, Hannibal used geography to win. Focused the Roman army through a narrow pass between some cliffs and Lake Trasimene on the Roman peninsula, Italian peninsula, and then was able to seal them up in this pass and drop stuff on them and slaughter them as he pleased. A bunch of Romans drowned. Another horrible slaughter, again, led by an impetuous Roman. And this is in part why things passed in the hands of Fabius Maximus afterwards. They were like, all right, enough hotheads going up against Hannibal. Someone can think clearly. But an opportunity to do coastline. There's a variety of ways of doing it. These books that I'm passing around highlight some of those methods of how do you do coastline. And the Battle of Lake Trasimene would be a nice one to practice that with. Of course, you're going to have lots of practice with doing coastline if you're making a map of the Mediterranean. And this is about what it, the span of it on the final project that they did. A couple of different options here for looking at things. So, what we did, I give them this grid printed on tabloid paper. And that was the final format. It was 11 by 17, which is like 2 letter-sized pieces together. But tabloid paper is that size. These are 1-inch grid. I did have them try just freehanding the Mediterranean coast to see how that went. And some did better than others, as might be expected. But then I gave them a map of the Mediterranean with that grid printed over the top of it, and talk through, here's how you use a grid to transfer something large from one thing to another. And I will send all these out when I send all the resources for this. So that's what they'd have there. I then in Google Earth had several maps with that grid imposed over the top of it, and you have one of those. Here's the one with the labels on it. So they could use that and get things placed properly. Have the grid version for laying things out. And then it was just sort of go. By that point, they'd learned how to do mountains and rivers and coastlines and forests and cities and how to do a key and a compass and a scale and all of that sort of stuff. Now put it all together, and we're going to make this map which can tell the whole story of the Christian West. And I've gone through this map with those places on it, and you can talk about pretty much anything you would want to talk about for the history of the Christian West. You've got Aachen, you can talk about the Carolingian Renaissance, Charlemagne, the learning that happened there. Anything from the Bible, from the Greco-Roman world. You want to tell the story of Paul's journeys as a missionary. You can point and find places. So that's what they would then set about doing, is making this final map. At this point, I think I'll share with you a map that a student did. One of them was so awesome, I offered to buy it from him. He wanted to hold on to it as a sort of template so he could make more. So I commissioned him to make one for me. And he did. I'm going to see how well I can get this to show up here. Switch back to the document camera. I might even have to put the camera on. So this is map of the Christian West. Yeah. So this was kid Silas. You can also see his work in the front of your conference booklet. He's dominated the calligraphy contest for years. Some of you may be pleased to know he graduated this year. Which is in part why I propose teaching calligraphy. So we can keep the contest going. But yeah, you can see how he handled coastline, how he handled mountains, those various places. He of course included some nice inside jokes and things on here too. But you've got Hannibal getting ready to cross the Alps there. You've got the Trojan horse over here. The Hellespont labeled, Troy, Nicaea. It's fun to see the interaction of classical and Christian history. You realize how close Troy and Nicaea were to each other. Right. Things you might not necessarily connect. Geography can help tell that story and bring things together. Over here, lots of stuff. And this was a packed area. Having to go through with students, here's how you label things. Or you want to include the Sea of Galilee, the Dead Sea, the Jordan River, the Battle of Jericho, Jerusalem, our Lord's crucifixion, the Battle of David and Goliath, and Tyre. You need to fit it all in about a square-inch area. How do you do that? And talked about various labeling techniques. Again, those books that I passed around are helpful for talking about how do you fit things together. Nice compass and scale. Nice legend. There are 4 camels. And then, of course, no map that includes the sea would be complete without some fun creatures. I will now pass around this book, Sea Monsters on Medieval and Renaissance Maps. This is a fun one to just have on the counter. Let kids, when they have finished their map, to go ahead and adorn it appropriately. Yeah, you need that kind of stuff in there. We needed the... Need might be an overstatement. No, need is not an overstatement. And I like that book especially because all the pictures and descriptions are from actual medieval and Renaissance maps. So you can see how that goes. I actually had Silas on all the maps in my classroom. Sea monsters, and then he did various other things in there too. So now I've got proper maps on my walls in the classroom. But if you have a kid who's artistically inclined, that can be a fun task to give them. Look at this book, sketch out some monsters, run them by me, and then I'll let you draw on the wall. So that's a fun touch to add at the end. Now, I would have the students do the full thing on blank paper, or at least enough of it that I could see that they knew what they were doing. So I wanted to be able to see. You can transfer the Mediterranean coast properly from this sheet to this sheet. And they wouldn't be working with a sheet that had the grid printed on it, but had the grid behind it. So it's fainter than... some kids chose to trace lines and then erase them afterwards. That's fine too. But I wanted to be able to see you can accurately transfer the whole Mediterranean coast. That was a challenge for some, especially the common mistake there was miscounting the number of boxes. Yes. 8 over and 4 up, and you miscount, and I will accept Cyprus is in the middle of Asia. So that they could transfer the Mediterranean coast properly, that they knew how they were going to handle coastline. Now, it's really easy when it's vertical, to add a thin line, some waves or something. But when your coast is running this way, sure, you can add a sort of hairline to trace it, but your waves aren't going to go like this. How do you keep the waves going in the same direction? And so, it teaches them to go about everything differently, depending on the direction they're going. I wanted to see that they could handle mountains well. That for especially tight areas on the map, like by Jerusalem or near Athens, we have a bunch of labels that need to be included there, that they had thought through. This is how I'm going to handle that, so that everything is legible and you can still see the geography that you need to here. Once they could show me, this is my layout, this is how I'm doing coastlines, this is how I'm handling tight spots, then they would start their final project. And super easy to grade. Just show me your map when you're done, and you look at it, and it's pretty clear how to proceed. I would ask students, what would you give this? That proved to be a nice starting point for assessment.
Yes, I ordered them.
All right, so that was the project. That's what we did with cartography. You could transfer this to anything, whatever historical period you're studying. It'd be really easy to do with Greek history. It'd be fun to do with some European medieval history. And there are plenty of things geographically that are going to factor into those historical events. So pinpointing those ones for use in a class on cartography can really help drive the connection between history and geography. Can make those particular events, which are often some of the most significant ones, more memorable in the minds of your students. Remember them better, be able to talk about them afterwards, not just in one ear and out the other. So again, this trifecta of history, geography, and art can be a great teaching tool, very enjoyable for the students, and frankly enjoyable as a teacher as well. Thank you.
To collect their maps or store them, or because one of the problems with art is you make it and then what? Kicks around, gets wrecked, Mom puts it on the counter, Joey puts the sandwich on it, like,
Sure.
just question.
Yeah, so a lot of these that they were doing was just practice. They were practicing coastlines, practicing mountains. So you have sheets drying on the counter of a bunch of mountain ranges, not even on anything, just practice mountains. And a lot of that's just like, yep, into the recycling bin, after it's dry. If they wanted to keep them, maybe they could keep them. It's not that I threw them out immediately. It's that if they were sitting on the counter for an entire quarter and not disappearing, then they would go away. For the final projects, we were much more careful about how we were laying things out. I reserved the counter and a back table, actually a couple back tables, and laid things out, made sure to be careful while things were drying, made sure that students were getting their final maps, keep them if they wanted them. And some of the smaller maps the kids liked too, but even like the Winnie the Pooh one, actually, kids just left us lying around, didn't have a name on it. I don't remember who it was. So it became mine. Yeah.
Will your student be accepting commissions in the future? I'm being serious. Is that something
He's actually got several mount commissions and calligraphy commissions as well. I could put you in touch with it.
I would love that.
Yeah. Actually, I could just put his email address on the board. He would get a kick out of being contacted by some of you and asking if he has time to do this or that. So, Silas Whitcomb is his name. And his email address, s.whitcoff2@gmail.com. Now, he is not the second, so I'm not sure how the two factors of the thing. Yeah, so Silas Whitcomb. Now, he is getting ready to start at LCC, and this has been the sort of caliber student we've been getting for LCC. It's awesome. So he might consider himself spread too thin, not wanting to take on more than he's already got at the moment. But it wouldn't hurt to reach out. Yeah. Excellent. Yes.
Solo quiero acotar. We are from Ecuador, so he wants to make us
Sorry, what was that?
he wants to say something.
Yo trabajo con un sector indígena en mi país.
So he works with native people in Ecuador.
Y qué importante conocer los mapas porque en el grupo indígena que yo estoy, ellos todavía tienen la idea de que la tierra es plana.
So he says that in Ecuador, some native people, they still think that the earth is plane.
Y cuando he tenido que llevar, no he tenido que solo llevar el mapa plano, sino la bola.
So when he has to teach those people, he has to take like the whole round earth, not just the map like this.
Y decir las explicaciones de cuánto tiempo hay desde mi país hacia la Tierra Santa.
So he has to explain how much, how many hours he makes from our country to Israel.
Y otra dificultad es que la gente piensa que la historia bíblica es de otro planeta.
Also, that people says that the Bible story is from another planet.
¿Dónde
They
está,
think that.
¿Dónde está Egipto?
So they
¿Dónde
don't
está
know
Roma?
where is
Y
Egypt.
piensan que la Roma y el Egipto de la Biblia es otra Roma y otro Egipto.
So they think that they're sent from another planet, Rome and Egypt.
Yeah. Like I noted before, seeing like a final map that has places that you already know in relation to places that you haven't really considered that much can make them more real in your mind. Right? That can be a danger with studying history or even in Bible stories sometimes without looking at where did this actually happen in the world. Sometimes unintentionally, kids can be left with the impression that like this is just a story. This is just made up. But to show that this actually took place on the same Earth that you live on. That can be great for making kids realize this is true. Yeah.
This is another comment, but a comment of gratitude that's to add to your trifecta of geography, history, and art is there is a lot of quadrivium in the skills that you are developing, having the practice with scaling, proportion, and it is helping them see their relationship with the world around them, just that kind of a way. Connections as well to earth sciences and astronomy and natural sciences, not only just as depicting them, but in learning about them.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great point. And it doesn't have to end with 3, right? History, geography, art. You can, especially that quadrivium aspect, you could really capitalize on that in talking about ratio and measurement and scale. Yeah.
Do you use any raised relief maps?
Any relief maps?
Raised relief, like the 3D, like
Right.
ants.
I don't have any of those. Yeah. I haven't even looked into it. I can see that there could be some benefits. Have you used them?
Yeah, we bring them and all the kids just boggle on them when their little hands go around. So that's been really fun. And then the smaller the area that you're looking at, the more dramatic the relief is. So that's been really fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
Where do you get those?
Like I don't remember like you're gonna say map stuff. I don't remember, but it's like they're called raised relief, and so map shop maybe.
Yes.
One challenge is not being able to do this stuff before actually teaching it. Did you have to like do this and show them how to do it, or did you just tell them to copy the map and then kind of work from there the first time you did this?
I demonstrated techniques. Here's how you use the grid. Here's how to use the document camera. Here's how you transfer this to a square over here by hand to make it match up. And here's how you add a nice block to that make a coastline, make sure it's the right box. And here's how you draw mountains. So you draw forests, rivers, coastlines, so forth. Cities, key legend. But if the question is, did I actually make one of these? The answer is no. I showed them how to do it, and they did it. The map that you have in front of you, this guy here, knowing the techniques and having this was enough. Yeah.
Please tell us about document camera. My mind is like exploding.
Yeah. So, this is what's the gotta get the right combination of letters and numbers here. So this is an IPEVO ECR. I like it a lot. You can plug an HDMI cable right into it. They make one that's about half the price. This is about $200. They make one for $100 something that you have to plug into a laptop and HDMI into your laptop. So you have to have kind of a middleman. I like this because you can plug right into it. It's got autofocus, has a light built into it. You can brighten or darken depending on the situation. Even for the camera, zoom out. Yeah, you can rotate the lens, go up and down. So, I found it handy for anything that I need to demonstrate. Here's how you do something with your hand. So, teaching handwriting to younger students. It's really hard to teach handwriting when you're doing it on a whiteboard and the student's doing it on paper, right? This just makes it nice. I can be using the same implement and tool that they're using, and they can imitate me in what they're actually doing. So calligraphy, cartography, I'll use it in younger things for teaching handwriting, print, and cursive. So pretty much all of our classrooms have one. Yeah.
What age, or what age would you recommend starting this? Like if a child is showing interest at age 7, for example,
Yeah.
is there anything that you think like, no, they need to master this, or you should do your geography class first, or something like that? But is this just like when they look like they want to?
Yep.
It would be, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just going for it.
Alright, awesome.
And then, pick based on the age and maturity of the child, right? How complicated are we going to get here? Yeah. There are nice simple maps that you can do, where you don't have to worry about shading or detailed features. Then we do coastline, then we do rivers, not even a decorated coastline, just the line, right? Working with crayons or colored pencils as well. Because a big thing is if you're working with black and white, you need to be able to make it clear. The coastline, this side is the water, this side is the land. Right? And so we talked about various ways of representing that. But if you've got a younger child, just do a line for the coast and then color this side green and that side blue, and it'll be clear enough. Yeah, you can simplify this as much as you want. Yeah. Yes?
Going off of her question, if you are doing it with younger children, I can see using the 1-inch scale, looking at a picture and then drawing on your own paper would be harder. Have you used tracing or anything like that with the younger children, or where would you suggest starting with a 3rd grade, 4th grade kid?
Yeah. I think 3rd and 4th graders could pick up on using grid fine. I generally discourage tracing, though for much younger students, just getting the feel for this is how my hand holding a pencil goes along that line. Right? Tracing can be really good for that for younger kids. If you wanted to do something with, say, a more complex river or coast, that might be the way to go for accomplishing it, rather than trying to freehand the Po River or something. But it comes down to what's the goal, right? That can be a useful exercise for learning manipulation of a writing utensil. But what is the kid gonna then do with it? How am I gonna work on teaching some history with it? Is that why I want them to draw the Po River? Or working on coloring or shading or what have you, right? Because I think just tracing the Po River for the sake of tracing the Po River wouldn't necessarily be, I don't know, edifying. Or my question would be, what's the telos, right? What are we getting at here? Right? But you can decide what the goal is and adapt any of this as simply as you like. Yeah.
Just a comment on the simpleness of it. I think my husband visited your classroom and sent me pictures of your maps on the wall and pictures of the books.
Yeah.
I found them in the public library and I just put them in my classroom. So I never actually taught it or anything, but I had 2 students just going through the books and doing history, making their own maps. Their family ended up buying the books, and so it was just the 2 of them kind of going back and forth and asking, well, can you print that map on what we just learned about it? They just kind of did it on their own without any instruction.
Yeah, we've had that too. In the 3rd through 5th classroom, that red RPG map book, we keep several copies of that on the counter. When kids had finished their homework and were on study period, that was one of the options. Draw a map. And some of the kids really gravitated toward that and loved it.
I think we're out of time.
All right.